Good morning and thank you for taking the time this Friday to join us for the second annual RHT G.R.A.C.E Institute Forum. RHT G.R.A.C.E Institute seeks to promote ethical leadership and good governance amongst leaders, professionals, and the business community, and it is timely with the recently concluded COP26 UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow that the theme for this year's G.R.A.C.E Institute Forum is on the G.R.A.C.E values as they apply to ESG. Many things were discussed and agreed at COP26, but some noteworthy items from a governance perspective were the common timeframes for countries to meet their national climate commitments, as well as a common reporting framework that is transparent, consistent, and importantly, comparable. It is only the start of the race to net zero, but at least all countries will now be hopefully running the same race. Without further ado, I'd like to invite the patron of RHT G.R.A.C.E Institute, Mr. Koo Tsai Kee, to give the opening address. Mr. Koo Tsai Kee was an MP in the constituency of Tanjong Pagar G.R.A.C.E from 1991 to 2011. After his retirement from politics, he served as an MD in Temasek International from 2011 to 2016. He now serves as an advisor director in Temasek International Advisors and sits on the board of Elite Commercial REIT and Temasek Foundation. Mr. Koo, please.
Mr. Chiu Hing Chin, Chairman of RHT G.R.A.C.E Institute, Mr. Tan Chong Huat, Chairman of RHT Rajan Menon Foundation, my fellow council members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to the second RHT G.R.A.C.E Institute Forum. The Institute is a social enterprise launched by RHT Rajan Menon Foundation. This is a philanthropic organization which is a long-standing advocate of environmental, sustainability, and governance issues. RHT G.R.A.C.E Institute seeks to promote and encourage ethical leadership and behavior among leaders, professionals, and businesses. G.R.A.C.E aspires to grow like-minded leaders and professionals to promote, commit, and entrench a culture built on the G.R.A.C.E G.R.A.C.E principles. G.R.A.C.E is an acronym for Governance, Risk Management, Anti-Money Laundering, Compliance, and ESG, which includes ethics. These principles play critical roles in ensuring long-term stewardship of organizations and the environments in which they operate. Similarly, these principles can be applied to guide decision-makers in their race to achieving net zero carbon emission amidst the climate change crisis. In accordance with the 2018 recommendations of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, governments and businesses will need to accelerate their transition to a new economic model in order to avoid the worst damages from climate-driven storms, heat waves, and droughts. National governments have laid out programs and action plans to achieve the targets of capping global warming to less than 1 degree Celsius. Regulators have also required mandatory ESG reporting and financial impact disclosures resulting from climate change regulatory compliance. In addition to the climate change crisis, the world is still mired in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic. Like global warming, solutions to COVID-19 have shown us that global problems require global cooperation. The human cost of the pandemic is being felt across both developed and developing countries and in businesses big and small. The responses to the pandemic require collaborative effort from both the public and private sectors across all nations. In a crisis like COVID-19, private companies have come to the fore by developing revolutionary vaccines and testing kits in record time. Climate change solutions require a similar urgent mindset of cooperation and collaboration between nations and companies globally. Many of the innovations in renewables and other negative emission technologies have come from private companies. Unburdened by the complexities of multilateral climate agreements, responsible businesses have proactively committed to reduce emissions ahead of government targets. Business leaders have enormous collective influence over climate change. They have the ability to drive positive changes in their own operations and across the supply chains. In the transition to becoming green companies, management have to make adjustments. In the short term, these actions will impact their balance sheets. Nevertheless, these companies will reap the long-term benefits. Getting from here to a net zero carbon company is a challenging journey. The GRACE principles can guide them along the way. World leaders met at COP26 in Glasgow. The goal of keeping global warming to below 1.5 degrees Celsius is kept alive, pending more national commitments next year. While more was hoped for, the conference did score a few significant achievements. It declared a collective commitment to curb emissions and reverse the loss of forests. Countries also agreed to phase down the use of coal and align the finance sector with net zero carbon emission by 2050. Decisions made by world leaders at COP26 will impact organizations across all industries. The hard work now begins on making those climate promises a reality. Just as the response to COVID-19 uncovered significant inequalities, the global race to net zero carbon emission is fraught with ethical questions of who should bear the burden most. Despite the gravity of the climate change emergency, ethical questions and issues of fairness remain. Should mandatory climate action be applied equally across every country? Developing countries and companies in these countries will be adversely impacted in the global race to net zero carbon emission. Clearly, these countries need financial and technological assistance. Will promises made by the rich nations to help poor countries switch out of fossil fuel, and in particular coal usage, be followed through? This forum will discuss hot off-the-press views of the COP26 climate talks, as well as a series of related discussions on governance, risk, compliance, and ethical issues around sustainability that will help to focus the issues and discuss possible solutions on global climate change. I look forward to the insights from our expert panelists and sustainability champions. I wish you all an enjoyable and insightful time at the forum. Thank you.